I'd always been interested in Africa by books, films, television documentaries, etc. And it's a country I wanted to come and see for the elephants, their natural habitat, rather than being in zoos.
It's a lifelong ambition of mine to have come to Kenya on safari, one that I thought I might not be able to do. Seeing lions and elephants and giraffes, I mean, it would just be a dream come true.
The idea of coming to Kenya and seeing animals in their natural habitat appeals. I don't like seeing caged animals, so zoos never appeal to me. And I think probably Kenya gives that opportunity.
The Masai Mara Game Reserve, and a new group of tourists arrives on the safari trail. Their tour will take in Masai villages and the beaches of the Indian Ocean. But this is what they've really come to see, the spectacular wildlife of the African bush. A game drive that brings you close to the big game of Africa is a unique thrill. And there's always that edge of danger.
If they charge, don't go any closer.
That's far enough.
Okay, Simon,
Stop.
here. This little baby is so cute.
We're close.
Amazing.
Yes, can you stop so we can take a picture?
Keep your
Yeah, but we
hand
won't
on the
take
ignition though, whatever you do. Gosh, it's fantastic. Oh, lovely. Look at that. Isn't he gorgeous?
There are now as many as 40 game parks and reserves in Kenya, covering some 8% of the country. The safari trail takes in the marine parks of the coast and huge semi-arid areas like Tsavo, as well as the more famous reserves like Amboseli and the Masai Mara. In the Mara, the ultimate way of viewing game is by balloon, and these are some of the biggest in the world.
Masai Mara consists of something like 600 square miles. That's about 30 by 20, if you can't imagine what 600 square miles is really like. We've taken off at the northern end. We're flying approximately south down towards the Tanzanian border.
As we've passed over some of the animals they've run, do you think that ballooning frightens the animals?
Well, I'm going to ask you just to look at the animals which are just ahead of us. Here we've got waterbuck, we've got impala. Are they running? Are they perturbed? They're all grazing, and many of them still ahead are still laying down. But we do have two types of burner here. You heard when I went near to the elephants last time, I used the quieter burner. That enables me to get closer to them without disturbing them.
Some animals, though, do seem to be disturbed by the balloons passing overhead. In the silence of the Mara, the roar of the burner can be heard several miles away. And some animals, like rhino, have even been driven out of the area. But for many tourists, it's nothing less than the trip of a lifetime.
Absolutely fabulous. Magic. It's like floating, and all the animals look so different from up in the air. And it was, as I said, really fabulous, indescribable, wonderful experience.
I'm not convinced it's not frightening to animals. We saw very clearly that the noise at a close range does affect the animals, and so when we came down close to certain herds, like the zebras and the gazelles, they were disturbed and they ran.
Balloons are profitable, and there are now as many as 16 flying in the Mara, each requiring a backup operation of trailers and tractors, which in the wet season tear up the ground. And do balloons really belong in a game reserve? Some argue that they're turning the Mara into a fun fair and intruding on the peace and naturalness of the landscape. Kenya was one of the first third world countries to attract mass tourism, and in the 1970s and 80s, numbers increased rapidly, especially after the feature film Out of Africa. Tourism is now the largest foreign exchange earner, more important than tea or coffee, and every day, plane loads of holidaymakers fly into the heart of the game parks. Most tourists stay in luxury lodges, usually booking in for only 2 or 3 nights. Already, one of the reserves has as many as 13 lodges, each catering for up to 300 tourists a day. In former times, a safari meant camping out in the bush, right next to the game. But now guests are pampered in 5-star luxury, fenced off from the animals outside.
The Mara certainly is not what I imagined. I had ideas of miles of wide open space and to drive 12 hours and turn up at a 5-star hotel stuck in the bush. It surprised me.
I think it insulates you from the environment, most certainly. But against that, probably it would suit 95% of the people that go on safari. You've got the luxury and comfort of a lodge, but the animals aren't too close. You're keeping the animals at a distance and a sort of cold beer within easy reach.
Lodges produce large amounts of rubbish, and some animals, like storks and baboons, have become scavengers. Eating rubbish endangers the health of these animals and makes them obese. And recently, a mother elephant was poisoned here through eating batteries and died.
Just about it, Simon.
Yeah. Oh no, you see the... Stop, yeah, stop, Simon.
Stop.
Stop.
I can see through these sort of rooms.
Simon, do they eat tourists? No.
No.
What happens if you throw a tourist out at them?
Aren't we tasty enough for them? But not to eat. Aren't we tasty enough?
They're lovely. They look so powerful. Are we too close to them, Simon, do you think?
Well, they're walking away because there's a huge amount of tourists rocking up. They're thinking, not you lot again.
The most serious effect of tourism on the game parks comes from the army of minibuses, which often approach the animals too closely. The Mara has one of Kenya's largest lion populations. But due to constant harassment from tour buses, the hunting and mating success of lions and cheetahs has declined dramatically.
Yeah.
Salama.
Safi tu.
Ndio.
Umeona nini?
I saw the rhino
Yeah.
near the Emali Bridge.
Yeah.
And we saw a lot of elephants,
Yes.
very many.
Yeah.
Zebras.
When a popular animal like a lion or a rhino is located, the word is quickly passed on, as all the drivers want to please their clients and earn a good tip.
Yeah.
There's a lion we call Boots there.
To control the minibuses, special anti-harassment patrols have now been set up.
They drive very close to the animals, very near. And that's the most problem we are facing with the game drivers, with the game vehicle drivers. And also, they disturb the animals. When the lions want to hunt or cheetahs want to hunt sometimes the day, they disturb them because they go drive in front of them and block their way or maybe obstruct their movements. This is very typical now. There are vehicles down there. They seem to be harassing the game. Let's see whether I can get down there and talk to them. Yes. Habari yako mzee? Naangalia mnyama eh?
Sasa na
Unaona sasa hii ni makosa maana umekaribia sana. Na hii watu ni wale grupu ya hii magari ambao wanaangalia hii mambo. Kaa ile 25 meters ya kawaida kutoka kwa mnyama. Wewe toka tu.
But the small number of patrol vans face an enormous challenge. Hundreds of vehicles crisscross the game parks every day. And in the high season, there can be as many as 30 to 40 buses around a single animal. Though it's strictly illegal to drive off the roads, many drivers break the law to get close to the animals. A major new government plan is underway to control off-road driving. But in some areas, like Amboseli, the constant battering of wheels has helped to turn the grassland into a dust bowl.
I expected safari, sitting in a gorgeous tent with, your lovely director's chairs and, the sunset and all this kind of stuff. I didn't expect it to be hundreds of German tourists careering around everywhere going, var is an elephant and all this kind of stuff. And I didn't expect the animals to be so many, so close to the road and so completely oblivious to the fact that there were 20 tourists going past in a truck. And it isn't a game reserve reserved totally for wildlife. It's a reserve for humans to go around clicking photographs. And that must deprive the animals of their freedom and their natural habitat. It's a zoo. on a larger scale.
I dread to think how many vans could be running around on a single day and how that might disturb the animals. And we saw it, I think, yesterday or the day before when we came into the Mara, just out inside the park, when about 5 or 6 vans were grouped around a Pride of Lions, and that seemed quite obtrusive to me.
Well, I think it's been made quite clear to us that these game parks depend on the tourism. It's a catch-22. The game park survival depends on the influx of tourists, and on the other hand, its survival is also threatened by the very same thing. So it's a dilemma.
As the name Masai Mara suggests, the reserve is located in the traditional grazing lands of the Masai people. While the Masai are no longer allowed to live inside the game reserve, their settlements can be found all around the edge. And some, like this one, are now part of the Safari Trail.
Jumbo, you speak English? How old are you?
15 years.
15? You're really big for 15.
Yeah.
And a little baby.
Do you have any brothers?
Me? They are not around.
Where are you in school?
What's your name?
Narok.
Narok. Do you live there or do you go there
I'm
every
in a
day?
boarding school.
In a boarding school?
Yeah.
How many months a year do you go to school?
9 months a year.
9 months?
Yeah.
That's more than I did. How many families are in each village?
There is no precise number, but we are 7 families here. And then you can have even as many as 30 families. And that will probably be a very, very big village. And it is not good around here. This is a game country, and you need to have a small village. Because of the wild animals, once you have a very big area out there, then it is very, very hard for you to detect any wild animals that might come into the village.
Traditionally, the Masai are nomads, moving their goats and cattle seasonally across the grazing lands. For centuries, they've lived in harmony with wildlife. But when the game parks were created, the Masai were moved out with no compensation. But wild animals continue to migrate across Masai lands outside the parks, a migration that's essential for their survival. To protect their pastures, some Masai are now fencing their land. And this is potentially devastating for the wildlife, whose migration routes will be blocked. But unless they benefit directly from game park revenue, the Masai don't see why they should help to conserve animals like wildebeest.
They eat all the grass, and we are actually forced to move out of our own traditional areas, out of the way to other areas where the wildebeest don't reach, and yet we live with these animals. Actually, we are part keepers of this wildlife. We are sort of conservationists in a way, naturally. And this is what is bringing in revenue, and we don't seem to be getting anything,
But there are now signs of change. At Amboseli, a Maasai school and water supply have already been partly funded by revenue from the game park. And there are plans for this kind of community investment to happen on a much wider scale.
Take it off.
Oh, good. Very nice.
At present, though, the villages that benefit most from tourism are those on the edge of the game parks, where there's always a ready market for Maasai
The
souvenirs.
ladies make all this.
And the men carve.
The men carve.
Yeah, they carve.
And this one, the mushibi. This one, the mushibi.
Oh, I mean, I was dead excited meeting the Maasai supposedly in the flesh and going to the real Maasai village. I must admit, when I went in there, I wasn't expecting this huge half circle of all their wares and being sort of, very much encouraged to buy something, which I didn't mind, in the end. But I mean, I thought this was rather strange. They all sort of suddenly appear with all their bits and pieces and sort of make it perfectly clear that you have to cough up huge amounts of shillings for this stuff. And I was very amazed that when you're in the village, you're sort of trying to talk to them, saying, hello, and what's your name? And suddenly a little boy at the back, age 13, says, my name's Andrew, and I went to school in Nairobi, and my favourite subject's biology. So I wasn't really expecting that. I like that one, but that one's 700.
700 one now, 700.
No, can't afford it.
Beautifully carved.
Yeah.
Someone here in the village carved it. You carved it?
Yes, some men you know.
Some men in the village carved it.
It says 300 shillings.
300?
Yeah.
This lady said
Ada
250.
250.
This one's 350.
350. So this lady says 250, and my young friend says 300, and you say 350.
Don't even, we'll get 300.
Okay, what you do, she told me to say 300, but you can bargain,
I can bargain, so I was a bit disappointed, but not surprised. When I left, I turned to have a last look, and one of the men I had been talking to and bargaining with to get the necklace I bought had gone into his home, and he was wearing jeans and a t-shirt, so it rather took the shine off of it for me, but I've got some lovely colourful pictures anyway of them.
For the tourists, it's the end of their first week on safari. And tomorrow, it's time to leave this spectacular place. The Masai Mara is a very special environment, but one in which tourism is now starting to have a negative impact, and no longer, it seems, a wilderness. After dinner, it's time for the cabaret, a nightly event on the safari trail. For the Maasai, it's another source of income. But is all this turning Africa into a theme park?
I don't think it's a bad thing for Africa. I mean, they have to make a living, and that's their way of making a living. It's a commercial enterprise for them. And I'm sure that tourists enjoy it on the whole. It basically, for me, a false presentation of something that I think would be a wonderful thing to see in original form.
Tourism's changing the face of people that it touches. It's certainly affecting the way they think, and it's certainly altering their habits and their lifestyles. On balance, you'd probably say negatively, but then on the other hand, they're, like the rest of us, probably trying to make a living out of tourism as much as we're exploiting their wildlife.
Jambo bwana, habari gani? Nzuri sana, tuimbe, tucheze sote, Kenya yetu, hakuna matata. Jambo bwana, habari gani? Nzuri sana, tuimbe, tucheze sote, yetu hakuna matata.
As a tourist destination, Kenya's great advantage is the combination of wildlife and beaches. And no safari is now complete without a trip to the Mombasa coast.
Jambo bwana, habari gani? Mzuri sana. Tuimbe, tucheze sote. Kenya yetu hakuna matata.
Kenya's Sunset Strip. Little more than palm trees and fishing villages a generation ago, the coast has rapidly become a major long-haul holiday destination. Every year, another 10 hotels go up, as more and more Europeans go in search of the tropical sun. But beach tourism in Kenya has been grafted onto a very different kind of society. This is the old town in Mombasa, only a few miles from the main tourist beach developments. The local residents are predominantly Muslims, descendants of Arab traders who came here from the Middle East generations ago and mixed with the Africans to become the Swahili people.
What is this?
This is a drum. Afghan drum.
Made of what?
What is this made of?
That is for traditional dancing.
And what is this made of?
What's this made of?
Is this a toupee?
What is this?
You wear this on your head?
This is a cowtail.
That is a cowtail. What do you use cowtail for?
Cowtail.
Well, swish to swish the
Swish the flies away.
Of course, yeah.
God, how does it work?
Tourism has brought money to the people on the coast, but as in the game parks, it has also brought problems. Tourists come from Western societies with very different standards of dress and behavior.
The women, they dress swimming costume. This is very, very bad to Islamic society. Sometimes they come into the town, even in the hotel with swimming costume. This is very taboo in Islamic. When the Islamic dress, they cover the whole body. To show against attraction to a man. This is the Islamic rule. To wear dress, not attracting any man. This is how Islamic insists to use such a dress. Young girl, when they see them, they say, this is how, good way of dressing. And they can copy such a habit, which is very wrong to our society.
Ladies and gentlemen, Karibuni. This is where we are going to do our coconut climber demonstration. I think every one of you can see how he's moving. Step by step. Slowly, slowly. Okay, he's waving you, Rashid. Say jumbo to them. Yes. Rashid is saying jumbo to you. Okay, he's going down now.
Life on the Swahili coast has been transformed by tourism. African culture has been adapted and packaged for tourist consumption, while at the same time, a whole new international way of life has been imported.
Ja, das ist gut. Wie teuer? 800 Schilling ist zu teuer.
Some of the hotels are getting to look a bit like the Costas in Spain, and presumably the management are quite happy to see all of the local culture completely submerged by tourism. And that's the danger, as I see it, that the demands of the tourists just swamp anything that's natural along the coast here.
This is anywhere land. This could be anywhere hot. The sea is beautiful, but it is just like any other developing country where the people that are here are eager to make a buck, and the tourists are eager to create a cocoon for themselves in a warm environment and in a comfortable environment.
I feel the danger is that a person visits the country, says, oh, I've been to Kenya, and they do so without actually sampling the flavour of the people and the country. And it tends to give people the impression they understand the country when in fact they have no idea whatsoever.
Aren't they coming here on holiday? Aren't they coming to see the
People
country?
travel 3,000 miles, see the same things they do at home, sit on a sunny beach, watch people climbing trees, play shuttleboard, and go out on glass-bottom boats. That's what they're here, that's what they're paying.
You're right, they
see,
do that, but it's sad.
That's tourism.
There is also a darker side to tourism. Local people say that tourists have brought laxer moral standards, alcohol and drugs. Worst of all, they've brought sex tourism. In the Mombasa area alone, there are estimated to be over 2,000 prostitutes and gigolos earning much of their trade from the tourists.
Our children go to the beach to find those tourists, and there are some old lady, they're after young men, either to make boyfriend, as they say, sugar daddy or sugar mommy. This is very dangerous to our children. Some of them, they get married to them. This is affect our society. And such a young boy used to go frequently. They left entirely their class of religious or secular education. They used to go, now those astray. This is also effect to our society.
One of the greatest tourist attractions on the Kenya coast are the coral reefs, and tourists can visit these as part of their safari.
These aren't piranha, are they?
The reefs are an environment of incredible diversity. There are over 200 species of fish and 140 corals of every imaginable shape, color, and texture. Mombasa Marine Park suffers its daily invasion. At low tide, glass-bottomed boats from the beach hotels home in on the reef.
Well, it's just like Piccadilly Circus here. It's just packed with people and boats. Are there always this many people here? I mean, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
They're still coming more, my friend.
There's 11 boats. How many boats do you get here then?
More than 20.
20?
Yeah, one day,
Yeah.
more than 20. And all the people comes here swimming and feeding fish with the bread.
These people just here, what are they standing on?
They're standing on the coral.
They are
The
standing on the
coral,
coral.
yeah.
Does it not damage the coral?
Yeah, they damage it. Once they step on it,
Yes.
they make the younger corals to die.
It makes it die. It
Yeah.
does kill it.
They kill them.
It kills the coral. Yeah.
I think it's amazing for a marine conservation park, the idea that the coral is damaged by the people who come to visit and the tour operators is remarkable. You can see these buoys over here that I presume were meant to be used for the boats to tie up against. And in low water conditions, they just drop their anchors and drag them through the coral. That's amazing. Normally it's illegal to drop anchors in a conservation area. There's no way to operate a marine park.
Coral is a living organism and extremely delicate. The slightest touch can kill it off. Constantly battered by anchors, tourists' feet and fishermen's nets, the coral here is being destroyed and turned into lifeless rubble. As the ecological balance is disrupted, sea urchins have multiplied, burrowing into the coral and further breaking up the reef. It is illegal to harm coral, but the marine patrols do little to control the tourists.
Why don't they stop them?
I don't know.
I mean, you won't have a livelihood in 10 years' time. There will be no tourists out here unless you stop them walking on the coral.
That's why we're all the time arguing with them.
Yeah. I mean, what are all your other friends who...
The old boats also, they're all people from the boats. We need to stop this walking on the corals.
And you all feel the same?
Yeah.
You all feel the same?
The damage is being made worse by tourists taking shells and starfish, vital links in the ecosystem. In any one year, over 140 tons of shells and coral are removed from the reef, and huge amounts are sold on the streets to tourists.
Tourism is not a bad thing for Kenya, and certainly on the coast, it's not a bad thing. But unfortunately, what we've seen here is probably the worst of how tourism can be developed, which is a high concentration of tourists in a very small space. And it's like a snowball that can't be stopped. It just has to be controlled whatever way possible.
Okay, so one hotel doesn't make that much difference along the coast, but, 35 hotels. It's a lot. And it eventually is going to cause damage. And it's not the tourists who are going to suffer, because they're then going to turn around and say, oh, God, Kenya's not what it used to be along the coast. Let's go elsewhere and trash that one instead.
This is Lamu, an ancient Swahili town north of Mombasa. Here, they are trying to control tourism so it blends in with the local Islamic culture. The aim is to keep tourist development on a small scale, so no large hotels are allowed and there are few bars serving alcohol. Lamu is isolated and hard to reach, so there are no mass package tours coming in. And those tourists that do come are to be discouraged from behaving inappropriately or dressing in ways that offend local people. And as with the Maasai, a levy will be placed on all tourists to go towards the development of the community, and in particular to help pay for Lamu's unique architecture to be preserved and enhanced. This same sense of environmental responsibility has even been taken up by the tourist industry itself, as at this large hotel further down the coast.
This hotel tries to embody the flavour of the coastline, and if you take a sail out and look back, you'll see that none of the buildings are above the height of the palm trees. They're hidden behind the palm trees. They're also built in a white type of appearance, which is consistent with the Islamic culture along the coast. And it's got a very sort of low-key type of environment. It's pleasant.
The last day of the safari, and the tourists have come to Tsavo Game Park, some 60 miles inland from the coast. 10 times the size of the Masai Mara, Tsavo is by far the biggest of Kenya's game parks. And as there are few camps and lodges, relatively few tourists come here.
You know, when we're driving along like this, you really want to keep a very good eye out and give me a shout if you see something. Because your vision from upstairs there is a lot better than mine down here.
I don't think he likes the look of you.
Yeah, these elephants here are pretty wild. I think they're wild compared to any other elephant in Kenya, I should think.
You want him to suddenly turn around and charge?
Oh, that's a fantastic shot there. Unbelievable.
Our elephant here have been poached, shot at, and basically don't like man very much. And they don't often see a vehicle.
You certainly get a feeling that the animals are on top of you here. I wouldn't say it's intimidating, but it certainly puts you on your mettle. You realise that you're in a fairly awesome environment if anything went wrong.
Hey, if you go to the Mara, it's a bit like looking into a fishbowl. Everything's there, it's easily accessible. Whereas when you go out to this type of game drive, you've got to look for animals. When you find them, you get a chance to stalk them. And you really get a feeling they're in their natural environment and you're just observing them.
Yeah.
No other tourists, just us and animals and wide open landscape.
We didn't see anyone else.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
And it's not luxurious. I mean, this is the basics. You live in a tent, you have, water in a bucket. It's about as basic as you can get without being uncomfortable. This is the French national anthem, and Bridge over the River Kwai.
That's it, that's King Version, yeah.
This is Herbie Paul's campsite on the banks of the Galana River. Staying in such an exclusive, small camp is expensive, but it does allow an unusually close contact with the wild and the chance to see animals in a truly natural setting, guided by an expert.
Do the crocs attack the hippos?
No.
They don't?
No.
Got frightened off.
But hippos attack people, by the way. They're aggressive. For no apparent reason, actually. They just go. Yeah, and they turn boats over in the water, But they kill more people each year than any other animal.
More than the buffalo?
Oh, yes, much more.
Come on.
Have you ever been charged by one then?
Yes, I have, actually.
You have? And what happened?
I found that I was remarkably quick.
Yes, it's funny how...
Yeah.
It's funny how
a little fear will do that.
God,
it's funny how you can sprint under these circumstances.
These things.
Are there many tourists that come through here?
Not so many. There are a lot of tours that come through, but in this particular area, they just rush through. They are aiming to get to somewhere by lunchtime.
Yeah, this isn't the kind of place you can rush, is it? Yeah.
And that's what they do.
I guess that's because the animals are not so easily spotted as they are in the Mara.
That's right. So they want to go to somewhere where they are a bit easier available. But here, right here with this road now, this road is a four-wheel drive vehicle only.
Yeah.
That's quite different than the Mara then.
Tsavo shows that the authentic safari is alive and well in Kenya. But elsewhere in the country, tourism is often a double-edged sword, a blight as well as a blessing. Here, though, by the side of the Galana River, the tourists have found a fitting end to their safari,
Like a wall of water.
and a taste, at last,
Never used to be like that.
of the real Africa.
Many years ago, of course, this was quite a deep river, and it wasn't quite so wide. And with the erosion which is going on up country, and all the silt which is coming down, as the river slows up, the silt went down to the bottom.
If I was coming to Kenya, the next time round, I'd prefer to do it solely based on the Tsavo experience. For the past couple of weeks, we've been sort of whisking through Africa, and I felt as if we just had a tantalizing visit without being able to touch and feel it. And for the first time, I really felt as if I was seeing a little bit of Africa.
Reforested all that area with it.
People who've been going to different countries, they're looking now for the long haul, and they will save the extra, and I can see that it will get very overcrowded. And I just hope that they'll treat the country, and especially the people, with respect.
Now has a tax put on...
I think you've got to control tourism more. Whatever tourism is allowed in somewhere like Kenya, if they're coming to see coral reefs, if they're coming to see animals, first and foremost, that's got to be protected. And if it's at a cost to the numbers of tourism, or perhaps a higher price has to be paid to preserve the environment and the animals, then that price has surely got to be paid.